Go. Okay, our first question is, how would you define creativity in your own words?
Should we go or should we read all the questions first?
No, we can go. We can go.
I would define creativity as self-expression. You know, you're being creative, you let your feelings guide you, you let, your past experiences kind of guide the way as well. It's just being like your own authentic self. I feel.
Open mind. I think that also has a big part of being creative.
And using your imagination, like what's your imagination? Just be creative with that and use your original.
Right. I always like, when I first used to think of like creativity, I always thought of like art, but I feel like I realized it's so much more than that. And I feel like a lot of times like you're creative with the kids and it could just be like what you said, like thinking outside the box. So like versus having the kids, do a lesson like sitting down, like, well, how can we be creative and like make this fun and like something different?
Well, in our book on page 47, to piggyback off of you, Emily, I too also thought that when people were creative, it always meant like artistic, which I would always classify myself as not a creative person because I don't think of art projects or things like that just off the bat. Like I need help when thinking about that. But in our book, characteristics of creative people: independent, adventurous, curious, spontaneous. That's all me. So I guess I am a creative person. So yeah.
And I agree that it does require being flexible and thinking outside of the box and just being authentic and using your own unique ideas. Because a lot of times people think that, oh, well, what's creative for me might not be creative for somebody else. So it's all about whoever the person is, what they can do, whatever it is they're using, whatever type of materials or whatever it is they're doing, whether it's writing in song or writing poetry or writing a play or anything. So that's another way of being creative.
Yes.
And then how do you think about yourself as a creative person?
Well, we just kind of, I feel like we kind of answered that, like just going off the list of characteristics, going based off of what is in our book. I would say I characterize myself as very independent. I'm super adventurous, spontaneous, determined, reflective. I'm always open to experience. And I mean, the list goes on. So
one area I would work on would be risk taking. I feel like when it comes to life, and especially in my classroom, I very much follow the rules. I'll do little tweaks, but I need approval first. So I think risk taking and being more flexible and open in that sense, I feel like that's where I could grow.
I was gonna say, I feel like we're all kind of like creative in like a way, like just like us all talking about like our lessons, like we always learn from each other and we have such like creative ideas. So I would just say like we all have creativity by like literally like making a lesson or planning a lesson or implementing a lesson.
Yeah, that makes sense. How we differentiate our lessons, that's our creative minds, how we come up with those ideas and work that through.
Yeah, I've been given the thingy, the title of creative at my school. So now teachers come to me and ask for art project ideas.
Wow.
I'm
good.
Very creative.
When I think of the word creative, I think of unique. And I think that we are all born creative.
Right.
And I would agree with Crystal. I think I am such a by the book person that is probably my worst thing and my biggest thing that I have to work on, because I just feel like just kind of looking at my classroom, like everything has to be by the book, has to look a certain way, has to be, everything has to go a certain way.
Or like taking a PTO day to do something important.
Yes.
Like,
I'm straight by the book. Yeah.
I agree with the risk taking as well, but I think that for me, it's more of where I am now versus my other job. We had a little bit more freedom as far as what we could do with certain things and certain activities, whereas now with the being Head Start program has to be a lot more reined in,
Oh
because they have so many rules of what you can and cannot do in a class, you know, as far as with activities. So yeah, a little bit more risk taking.
Period. Next.
Next.
I lost it. Somebody commented in the thing, so it went
How
away.
can you support the stages of the creative process in your classroom?
I think by providing appropriate materials to our students and let them use their imagination, but it's for us to have the availability of those materials that could encourage that creativity and encourage that imagination.
Yeah, exactly. And the materials and also those giving them those opportunities. And sometimes we have to just give them the stuff and just let them go and get out of ourselves of what we want to see.
Yes, Carmelita. 100%. I get nervous. They mixed kinetic sand yesterday and I'm like, no.
Like blue Play-Doh and red Play-Doh.
Oh man, I was so upset. And then I took a step back and I'm like, whoa, calm down. And I was like PTSD from when I was little. And I'm like, you know what? We're mixing this kinetic sand and we're going to have fun with it. Okay, here we go. Because it's all about how you handle it, I think.
Right.
I think being an open classroom will help your child or any children feel that openness to take risks, to do these things in a creative manner, in a safe space, you know?
I also feel like, you know, for me in my classroom, I like to do with my students kind of just like let them do whatever within reason. Like, you know, there are limits, but like, you know, make a mess, explore, you know, like, yeah, you made this tower that's like a garage or like a pen for this tiger. Cool. You know, like I think that opens up their mind as well to like more creative thinking and, you know, et cetera, et cetera. So
I think even doing something small, like my kids really like coloring pages and they love that. And one day I had extra bulletin board paper and it was white. And I was like, you know what, instead of like tossing this, I gave it to the kids. I was like, here, color on it. Here's dot markers, here's markers, go for it. And they colored the whole entire thing and now it hangs up in our hallway because they're very proud of it. So
I
even
think
like
you guys
small
just
like
hit the nail on the head too for the next question, how you can
Foster the literacy. Yeah.
no, how you can encourage and grow characteristics essential to the creative process.
oh yeah, for sure.
Like
Absolutely.
I feel like you guys are hitting it right on the head.
Yep.
Yeah, I do that all the time too, Marissa. Like I literally will take that bulletin board paper and just tape it to like one
The
of the
table.
tables and they just go ham. Like,
Right.
and sometimes I even give them paint. And they're like, one time, one of my students, she started like painting her hand and she looked at me like, and I was like, it's like, go. And she was like, she started painting both her hands and then all the other kids started doing it, but they loved it, you know? So
Yeah, and I
think
was gonna
also
say,
exposing them to things like
Right.
the paints, the sands. Some kids have sensory, but if you keep
Mhm.
not throwing that option, eventually they'll dip their
Introducing it,
finger in or they'll try a little bit and they might really like it, but it just
Mhm.
takes that time. So just encouraging and remaining
yeah, I
positive.
agree. And I would even say like you can even bring into like lessons that you're doing. Like I have a student where we're working on like subtraction and he like hates it. So I actually brought kinetic sand and like Play-Doh and like he would roll up a little ball. So, you know, like 5, take away 3. And even just like that way, like actually got his attention, got him to actually like want to do the math homework. So even being like creative in that and like bringing it into a lesson.
So then if we went past that part, then are we down at the bottom? So what is the
How
difference
arts-
between a process
how
approach?
we're on the how can arts also foster literacy?
Mhm. It's like when they draw pictures, they are showing what they sometimes when they read books, they have that stuck in their brains, and then when they're drawing pictures, they're bringing that imagination and their what they read somewhere, their comprehension of what they read out on the paper. So
Right?
Yeah,
Like a lot of
we'll read
times.
a book. Oh, go on.
No, that's okay. Sorry, if you want to go. Oh, okay. A lot of times in kindergarten, like they'll read a story and then they'll actually like draw a picture of it just to represent it. So it's like they're still learning, even though like they're drawing, and that's actually like a development like milestone.
Mhm.
Yeah, for
The
us,
kids
we
like
do
to
a
act them
unit
out.
on spilled milk and we read the book and then we let the kids mush some paint in between two and do that symmetrical. It like when they pull the paper apart and we're like, well, what do you see? And there's no wrong answers, but they'll tell us what they see. And it's adding a certain element to their literacy because we're like, okay, well, we just read this book. Now we're going to do this art project and they tie it back. So I feel like it helps their brains also recall different things.
And also you can do, if it was an activity where if they went outside, like and they were looking at trees, well, you can have them come in and say, you know what, we go in, we're gonna draw pictures of trees. And then you're gonna give them while they're drawing, you can ask them, you know, tell me about your tree.
Yeah.
And you can write down, dictate their words. So they can see, oh, you know, they can connect that their thoughts. This is what your thoughts look like written down on paper.
Yeah, in my kindergarten class, we're actually starting the book writing process. So we're having them, they are writing their own books and being their own authors and illustrators. So right now we actually worked with some kids that were finished with their second stage of writing. So they're on the third of making the actual book. And like one of the kids' sentence was like, I saw a unicorn. The unicorn was pink. And she was so then she's coloring after she wrote everything. And then I asked her, I was like, you know, you're supposed to be writing about text, right? And she was like, what do you mean? I go, girl, your unicorn is purple and green. You said it was pink. And she's like, oh, thank you so much for reminding me. I have to make sure I read my next, like my sentences before I start coloring. And I was like, okay. And like doing stuff like that in kindergarten is combining arts and literacy together. Right. Completely.
When I think of the arts and literacy, my kids really enjoy being able to act out their favorite books. So I'll just like print stuff off of the computer, laminate it, cut out the little eyes, tie a string on it, like the Three Little Pigs, that's one of their favorites. They put the stuff on and then they're able to just like retell the whole story and then act it out. And then as simple as I brought in that microphone, they love to sing or sing their books. And that just kind of brings everything alive in the classroom. So we're down. What is the difference between a process approach and a product approach?
Or characteristics.
So, okay, so a process approach is when you give them the materials and let them do everything on their own. You don't tell them what to do. You might say, oh, we'll do a flower, but you don't dictate to them, oh, well, your flower has to be this color, or it has to be made this way. You just let them use their imagination and what they recall about a flower and write representational art. Let them represent it in the way that they want to. Versus product is when we cut out everything, tell them, oh no, you have to place that here and this has to be placed there and all your petals have to be absolutely right. That's more product art.
Yeah.
My favorite thing about doing, like seeing the different examples, is when I do an art project in my class and I have the nice little example that looks very cute. And then I love, my favorite thing is seeing how they take
what they do.
project and what they do. When we did abstract ghosts, pumpkins, and cats for Halloween, and mine was very cute, and some of them made it look like their ghost like melted, and like their eyes were like on the side of the ghost, and like their mouth was like floating away, and it was the best thing. And honestly, out of all of the projects, the ones where they have more creative freedoms and creative liberties, they like more. They like that like extra expressive step. And that's why now for Earth Day, I'm literally just cutting out a bunch of green and blue pieces of anything I can find. And they're just gluing it on a plate. And that's the Earth. And they're going to love it because it'll be their own, like they can design it however they want, put the pieces wherever they want. I'm not giving them like a template. I'm just letting them go.
We do both process and product, and with product I've seen we can assess them on so many skills, like how do they imitate, how do they follow directions, how is their multi-step direction following. And the process, we encourage their creativity. So we did a sunflower project for Ukraine, and we did it both ways. It was our learning invitation. One day was you have to do it this way, and one day you do it any way you want. And they enjoyed both experiences. It was amazing to see how they could think and how they could imitate if given a clue or something to look at, like a directed drawing.
This just happened to me the other day. So we're doing spring gardening right now in my classroom, and I was like, oh, I'll make this cute thing, and then they'll do it. You just cut out your little pot, put it on there, cut out your stem, your leaves, and then they'll use tissue paper, and you'll crunch it up, and then you'll glue it on, and it'll look like these beautiful flowers. Not a single one of them used tissue paper. And I was like, oh man, none of them are gonna look like this. But then when I looked at all of them around my little, what I thought was a masterpiece, like theirs look amazing and so different from each other that it's just, my brain was just focused on one thing, and they were just so creative with it that I don't know where I was. I think I was in left field with that.
I think that that's how I am too. Like I get my head stuck on how a project should look sometimes.
Mhm.
And the children have different ideas in their head on what they're going to do. And by the end of it, it ends up shaping me. And that's what I like about working with such young children, is that they're untouched, right? So what we put in their heads and how they express themselves, there is no wrong.
Mhm.
So I had one of those moments similar when we were making snowmen. Well, a lot of our snowmen were melted because these kids did not know what was going on. But at the same time, it still ended up being just as cute. It was just their own. So I think that depending on what age you're with, it's better, a little more structure, the product and the process. I mean, you can do, but with like my twos, it's all process, man. It's all just, it's all gravy, baby. Whatever you want to do, let's roll the dice.
And the last part of that just says, how does the insight apply to the development of the child's creative potential? I just think that allowing them to dabble with both, all it does is just continue to open up their minds and their imagination and their creativeness for them to continue to keep being creative and come up with more things and be that expressive person and really express who they are through whatever they create.
Yeah, if you let them spread their wings, they're gonna fly. Like let
Yeah.
them do what they think and how they feel, and give positive praise. Don't say, oh man, you glued this wrong, or oh you used the wrong thing, or anything like that. Just let them go with it, and wow, this turned out amazing. I think
Right.
keeping those nice phrases and simplistic expectations will help the child feel more comfortable in your care to then explore.
Right.
Whatever they do is amazing out of the world. It's what they should be hearing from us. For sure.
Yes, I mean, like I said, we have to step back and just appreciate what they do. Because when you think about other artists, everybody's not gonna like what they do, but somebody's gonna like it. And as long as they like it themselves, that's the thing that's most important. So, we're giving value to what they're doing, and that makes them feel that they are important to us.
Yeah.
I also think it's fostering that like independence in them and validation that they need and want at that age to kind of set the stage and, set them off into being more independent, assertive individuals. So
I was gonna say the same thing. I think it kind of lets them form like their individual identity and then kind of give them that autonomy, and they're doing it on their own.
Okay.
You need to
Do you want me to stop recording here and then we're gonna re-record for the other
You
one?
didn't answer the Torrance question.
Yes.
I don't want us to skip it and then us to get.
The Torrance identified 4 characteristics involved in the creative process.
Yeah.
The Wallace model describes the creative process. And Balkan added the refactor to Wallace model. What do these theories have to do with teaching and learning?
Well, according to our book, preparation is the process of gathering information, reviewing data or materials, identifying the problem, and locating resources or whatever else is needed at the outset to tackle the task. Incubation involves letting things develop without consciously working on them. Illumination is the satori, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that correctly, the moment of enlightenment, the aha or eureka, the new idea. Verification occurs when the excitement has passed and we test the concept and critically analyze the solution. And then verification is the refactor. This is where the work really begins and perseverance must triumph. It is the heart of the process. How does this apply to the development of the child's creative development?
Sorry, I accidentally hit my mute button at the end of that, so I don't know.
I think they all talked about like, creativity in like how what are all the components of creativity is like fluency and uniqueness, elaboration and all those
Flexibility,
theories.
yeah.
It's like literally telling what creativity is. So it all of them combined. Yep. Anything else we want to add, or we're good?
To stop recording?
Mhm.
Yep.